They say confidence changes everything, but nobody tells you what to do when the people closest to you don't notice the change. That's what it felt like, coming home to silence after becoming someone new. My name's Richard. I'm 39, live in Portland, Oregon, and for the past 20 years, I've been married to Dana. We've raised 2 teenage sons together, have a decent house, and I work as the lead project manager at a top-tier architectural firm downtown. On paper, everything's fine. But something in me broke 2 years ago. I was overweight, sluggish, barely recognized myself in the mirror. It wasn't just about the gut or the double chin, it was about how I felt walking into a room. Invisible. So I changed. I started kickboxing at a little studio off Hawthorne. Cut out all the junk. Lost 45 pounds. Bought clothes that fit better. Learned how to walk with my shoulders back again. People at work noticed. The barista at the cafe near the office flirted for the first time in a decade. My colleagues asked if I'd been on vacation. Hell, even strangers gave me those little glances I used to think were reserved for younger men. It felt good. But Dana? She just said, "You've been really into the gym lately," and went back to checking her phone. I didn't expect a parade or anything. But after years of being a tired dad and a half-their husband, I thought she'd see me again. Like I saw myself again. I tried. Took her to Cannon Beach for a weekend. Bought her that bracelet she'd mentioned months ago at Nordstrom. Invited her to my kickboxing class. She came once, smiled politely, and never returned. We weren't fighting, not really. But she was distant. Quiet. Like she was always halfway in another room, even when she was standing next to me. At night, I'd reach for her. Touch her hip. Stroke her back. She'd shift away slightly, not enough to be cruel, but enough to let me know the answer was no. I asked if she was stressed. She said work was fine. I asked if it was menopause. She laughed tightly and told me to stop Googling things I didn't understand. So I kept pushing, hoping something would shift, until that company retreat at Timberline Lodge last month. It was all upscale cocktails and architectural jargon, the kind of thing I usually zoned out through. But then Clara walked in. Sharp blazer, red heels, bright smile. She was the new client rep for the Hotel Astoria project, a major account. And she walked straight toward me. "You must be Richard," she said, offering her hand. I was told to look for the guy with the most posture and the least nonsense. I laughed. She smirked. Over the next hour, she told me about her transition from hospitality to design consulting. She asked smart questions. Teased me once when I ordered sparkling water. Called me old school in a way that felt like a compliment. She leaned in a little closer than she had to. I deflected. Kept things professional. But I noticed. And when Dana texted me later that night, "Hope the retreat is going well. Kids are fine. Don't forget to call if you can." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I locked my phone, turned it face down, and ordered another water. Clara was still across the room, laughing at something my coworkers said, flipping her hair. And all I could think was, she looked at me like I existed. Clara wasn't the kind of woman who wasted time. A week after the retreat, she texted. "Coffee sometime? Or something stronger? Just to brainstorm the lobby redesign." I told myself it was just business. I mean, it was, technically. We were working on the same project. The meeting would be in public. No harm done. So we met at the sleek little place in the Pearl District. Exposed brick, moody lighting, the kind of bar where you can pretend every decision is strategic. Clara was already there when I walked in, sipping something neat and scrolling through her phone. "Richard," she smiled, standing to greet me like it was a date. "You clean up well." I laughed nervously and pulled out a chair. "Just coming from the office." "Even better," she said, sipping. "Work mode suits you." We started with the hotel project. Floor plans, lighting cues, touchless check and flow. But before long, the conversation drifted. She asked if I had kids. I told her about my sons, both in high school, and the twins, 13 now, sharp and exhausting. She smiled and said I didn't look like someone who'd been married 20 years. "Dana's lucky," she said casually, stirring her drink. I didn't know what to say to that. I think I just nodded. Back home, Dana noticed. Not right away. But a few days later, while we were cleaning up after dinner, she said, "You've been quiet lately." "Just busy," I muttered, stacking plates. "Even Max said you seemed distracted." "I'm fine." She didn't push, but I saw the look. Not anger. Just observation. That weekend, I stayed late at the office to finish some renderings. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I needed space. Time to think. But what I was really doing was replaying that night with Clara, her laugh, her hand on my wrist as she made some joke about velvet furniture. I got home around midnight. Dana was asleep on the couch with the TV still glowing. She didn't wake up when I kissed her forehead. A few nights later, she did something unexpected. She came to bed early, fresh out of the shower, and slid in close to me under the covers. Her hand brushed my chest. She kissed my shoulder. And I froze. Not because I didn't want her. God, I did. But all I could picture was Clara, her sharpness, her heat, the way she made me feel alive. I pulled away. Gently. But Dana noticed. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice small but steady. "Nothing," I said too quickly. She sat up, eyes searching. "Do you still love me?" I didn't hesitate. I said yes. And I hated how easy it was to lie. The plan was simple. I was going to meet Clara, be honest, and shut it down before anything happened. I even practiced what I'd say on the drive over. "We've crossed a line. It's not fair to my family. Let's keep things professional." That was the plan. She chose a boutique hotel in the Pearl, one of those trendy places with minimalist decor and overpriced cocktails. I found her in the lobby bar, legs crossed, phone in one hand, the other wrapped around a martini glass. She stood when she saw me. "Didn't think you'd actually show," she said. I almost didn't. She tilted her head, studying me. "You look conflicted." "I am." We sat. The silence between us felt heavier than it should have. I told myself I'd wait for the right moment, but she didn't give me the chance. "I know what this is," she said quietly. "You're not the first married man to have a midlife panic with a smart mouth like mine in the room." I stiffened. "It's not that." "Oh no." She leaned closer. "Then why are you here?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. She smirked and looked away, like she'd already won. "Just so you know, I don't chase. If you want me to stop, say so." Then she kissed me. Not a peck. Not some accidental brush. A full, open, slow kiss that made my brain go silent. And I didn't stop her. I told myself it was just the moment. The thrill. But when we went upstairs, there was no excuse left. I followed her. And I didn't look back. That night was everything I hadn't felt in years. Want, attention, electricity. It wasn't just about sex. It was about being seen, desired. But the high wore off fast. Back home, Dana was in the kitchen folding laundry. She smiled when I walked in. That smile gutted me. I kissed her cheek. She flinched like she didn't expect it. Then she said, "You smell like hotel shampoo." I froze. "What?" She shrugged. "Nothing." After that, I started noticing how brittle things felt. I picked at Dana's suggestions during dinner, corrected her when she mixed up a date, snapped when she forgot to record a show I liked. It was like I wanted her to fail, just so I could justify what I was doing. The affair with Clara wasn't just physical anymore. It became obsessive. Text at odd hours. Flirty emojis during meetings. Inside jokes. She'd send me photos of what she was wearing, ask if I missed her. I always said yes. At home, I became a ghost. I ate quietly. Didn't ask about Dana's day. Slept on the edge of the bed. Then Dana's brother, Sean, came to visit. Retired Army. The kind of guy who sees through people like glass. He pulled me aside after dinner, voice low. "She knows something's wrong," he said. "She's just waiting for you to admit it." "There's nothing to admit." He stared at me for a long time. "Don't insult me, Richard. I know what it looks like when a man's got something to hide." I didn't respond. Couldn't. He nodded. "Fix it. Or walk. But don't string her along." That night I promised myself I'd end it with Clara. Go back to being the man I used to be. But the next morning, she texted, "Room 306. One last time. And I texted back, "Be there in 20. Clara had a key card waiting for me at the front desk. She said she just wanted to return some files from the hotel project, leftover mock-ups, swatches, and a branded bathrobe she'd accidentally kept. I should have said no, but I didn't. I told Dana I had to swing by a site visit near Beaverton. She nodded, flipping through a grocery flyer. "Grab eggs if you're near a store." Clara met me at the door of the guest room like we were in a movie. Tight black dress, hair curled. I was already saying everything she hadn't texted. "This isn't smart," I said. "No," she whispered, stepping aside. "It isn't." She kissed me the moment the door closed. It was immediate, desperate, selfish, messy, but familiar now, like we'd done it 100 times. She pulled me toward the bed, but I hesitated. "We said last time was the last. People say a lot of things." I almost stopped it. I really did. But her hands were already under my shirt, her voice soft in my ear, and I let myself fall again. The guest room was dim. just the afternoon sun pressing through gauzy curtains. My jacket hit the floor. Her dress slipped off her shoulders. And then we heard the front door open. I froze. Footsteps. The kind you only recognize when you've heard them for 20 years. The thud of grocery bags hitting the counter. The faint hum of Dana's voice, talking to herself. A door creaked. I grabbed Clara's arm. Bathroom, I hissed. Now. Too late. Dana opened the guest room door and stood there. Plastic grocery bag dangling from one hand. Her face changed slowly, confusion, then realization, then something I can't even describe. Dana, I said, my voice cracked. She didn't move, didn't blink. Clara, still half-dressed, just crossed her arms and said, "Guess this is awkward." Dana's knees buckled. She caught herself on the doorframe, but the bag dropped. Eggs burst against the carpet. One rolled, cracked and leaking, toward my foot. I stepped forward. "Dana, listen." She raised a hand. Not to stop me, just to steady herself. "I came home early," she said, barely above a whisper. "Thought we could have lunch." "Dana," Clara said, calmly, like she was talking to a child, "I think maybe you should get out," Dana snapped, pointing toward the hallway. Clara didn't move. "He's not a hostage, you know." I said, "Get out." Clara glanced at me. "You gonna defend her? Or me?" "I'm not defending anyone," I muttered. "Just go." Clara rolled her eyes, grabbed her purse, and walked past Dana like this was beneath her. She paused in the hallway and turned back. "You'll thank me eventually," she said. This was coming, with or without me. Dana didn't respond. The door slammed. We stood in the wreckage. Broken eggs. Her trembling hand on the frame. My shirt still unbuttoned. Silence. She looked up at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw something in her eyes I didn't recognize. She walked past me without a word. Down the hall. Out the front door. Didn't even grab her keys. I chased her halfway to the driveway. "Dana, please." She didn't look back. She got in her car, closed the door, and sat there for a minute before driving away. I stood there in bare feet on the concrete, watching my whole life reverse into traffic. And for the first time in months, Clara wasn't in my thoughts. Just Dana. And the way she had looked at me like I was a stranger. Not a man who betrayed her. A man who never really saw her at all. Dana filed for divorce the very next morning. No arguments. No yelling. Just a neatly folded stack of papers on the kitchen table when I walked in from the guest room. Her wedding ring sat on top. She didn't say anything. Just stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and her jaw locked. I tried to speak, to explain, but the look in her eyes was like a barricade. "Don't," she said. "It's done." The kids found out 2 days later. I sat them down, our 2 sons, both taller than me now, and the twins, who sat side by side like always. They didn't cry. Nobody yelled. Our oldest, Ryan, just said, "I figured." The other boys nodded. The girls didn't even look at me. They all chose to stay with Dana. No hesitation. Not even a question. I offered to help with school pickups, sports, anything. Dana just said, "We'll let you know," but they never did. My phone stayed quiet. Birthdays came and went. Texts left on read. The house emptied fast. Furniture shifted. Her books vanished. The scent of her lotion no longer lingered in the hall. I tried calling her. Once. She didn't answer. I tried again after 2 whiskeys. Still nothing. A week later, at the twins' middle school choir performance, Dana's sister walked up to me during intermission. Carolyn. Petite, sharp-tongued, always polite in public. She didn't even bother with hello. Just leaned in and said loud enough for the surrounding parents to hear, "You disgust me." I opened my mouth. "You humiliated my sister," she hissed. "In her own house. In front of your kids. I hope that affair was worth the wreckage." I looked around, felt the stares. Nobody tried to stop her. No one defended me. When I didn't respond, she gave a bitter smile. "You think this is over? This is just the beginning." And it was. Dana's brother, Sean, the military one, started making calls. Quiet calls. Calls to contractors, developers, partners we shared. Within 2 weeks, I was off 3 projects. Conflict of interest, they said. Clara was nowhere to be found. Her phone number stopped working. Her firm said she was on extended leave. That's when I found out she had a husband. He came to my apartment 4 weeks after the divorce was filed. Knocked on the door around 9 p.m., calm as you like. Then he punched me in the face before I could say a word. I hit the floor. My mouth filled with blood. He leaned down and whispered, "She does this a lot. But you? You're just the dumbest one so far." Then he walked out like it was nothing. I spent the night in urgent care with a split lip and a fractured rib. The doctor asked if I'd been in a fight. I said no. Lying came easy by then. And as I sat in that sterile room under fluorescent lights, the reality hit me. I'd lost everything. My wife, my kids, my job, my dignity, and the woman I thought was some kind of escape. She'd never even been honest with me. I wasn't the man caught between two women. I was just a fool who burned down his life chasing a spark that wasn't even real. 3 months after Dana left, I got a letter from her attorney. Certified. Signed for. I sat on the edge of my couch, the silence of my half-empty apartment louder than anything, and read every line. Clara was suing us. Not just me, us. For emotional damages. It was absurd. At first, I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Emotional distress from what? From cheating with me? From getting caught? But the lawsuit was real. It cited workplace harassment, professional defamation, and undue emotional distress caused by the hostile termination of a romantic relationship. Her husband had filed for divorce, apparently, and now she was trying to recoup the fallout by painting herself as a victim. Dana was furious. She didn't yell, not the Dana I remembered, but her lawyer called mine within hours, and suddenly we were both named in pre-hearing documentation. Because Clara had used our home as the place where it unfolded. Dana didn't want to talk to me, but she agreed to testify. I never should have gone to that ethics hearing. It was held in a downtown conference hall, the kind of place where architectural boards meet to discuss zoning policies or whether a steel overhang violates city code. But that day it might as well have been a courtroom. I sat at the long table, sweating through my jacket. Members of the board sat across from me like judges. Clara wasn't even there, but her attorney was. And Dana. She walked in looking like she'd aged 10 years and hardened in all the soft places. No makeup, hair pulled back, a black blazer like armor. She sat down across from me and didn't look my way once. Then they asked her to speak. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't break. She read from a letter she'd written. A statement. I was with Richard for 20 years, she began. I believed he loved me. I built a life with him. I trusted him with my body, my children, my safety. I stared at the table. He didn't just betray me physically. He erased me. Slowly. With silence. With distance. And then, with another woman. Someone coughed across the room. I didn't move. My kids heard the rumors. They saw the signs. They were in the house when it all collapsed. And I had to look them in the eyes and explain why their father wasn't the man they thought he was. I closed my eyes. Dana paused, then continued. This isn't about revenge. It's about consequences. Because a man can't destroy a home and still expect to be welcomed inside it. The room was silent when she finished. I heard someone sniff. Maybe one of the board members. I don't know what broke me. Maybe the line about the kids. Maybe the way she never cried, but something in me cracked. I buried my face in my hands and sobbed. Right there. In front of the board. In front of Dana. No one comforted me. No one said a word. And I realized, for the first time, it wasn't just that I had lost them. I had destroyed something permanent. And now, everyone knew it. After the ethics hearing, I didn't go back to the firm. No official suspension. No firing. Just a quiet, heavy understanding that I was done there. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Top floor of a building that smelled like mildew and old curry. My neighbors were quiet, mostly retired, and never asked questions. Which suited me just fine. For money, I took what I could. A seasonal job with a construction crew that worked in the rain, fixing sidewalks and sealing cracked pavement. Later, I did part-time tax prep for a local office downtown. The kind of work where you wear the same shirt 3 days in a row and no one notices. I had time now. Endless time. But it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like punishment. The kids didn't speak to me. Not one call. Not a single text. On their birthdays, I mailed cards. Wrote little notes about how proud I was, how sorry. I never mentioned Clara. Never blamed Dana. I didn't even include a return address at first, just in case it made them uncomfortable. They never responded. I tried college drop-offs. Drove 2 hours to Oregon State when Ryan left for school. Just sat in the parking lot, hoping for a glimpse. I saw him walk past me once. Tall, confident, laughing with his friends. I didn't call his name. I just watched him walk away. Dana's family blocked me on everything. I found out through a mutual friend that they threw her a small party when the divorce was finalized. Her sister made a toast. To second chances, she said, and to finally being rid of the ghost. That part hurt more than I'd expected. A ghost. Therapy became my only lifeline. It was a cheap clinic run out of a church basement, but the sessions were real, honest. The first time I told the story, the therapist asked just one question. Why did you cheat? I said the things I'd always said. That I was lonely. That Dana was distant. That Clara made me feel alive. But the therapist just sat there and said, no. Why did you give up before trying to actually connect with your wife? I didn't have an answer. In time, I came to understand the truth. I projected all my insecurities onto Dana. Her silence? I turned it into rejection. Her exhaustion? I painted it as disinterest. And instead of leaning in, I pulled away. The affair wasn't a fire I fell into. It was one I lit with my own hands and then watched burn everything I had. I started writing letters, one every month. For in total, one to each child, one to Dana. I never asked for forgiveness. Just told them about my life, the things I remembered, and the memories I held on to. They all came back unopened. Every single one. Returned with the same red ink stamp across the front. Refused. I kept them in a shoebox under my bed. It grew heavier every year. And that's how it went. Year after year. No more begging. No more pleading. Just silence. And a man trying to live with the sound of everything he'd lost echoing inside his own head. For years passed before any of them spoke to me. It was a cold Sunday in October. I had just gotten home from the trail, volunteer maintenance work up in Forest Park. Dirt under my nails. The good kind of tired. I was reheating leftover chili when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey, it's Maddie. We're in town. Can we stop by for dinner? I stared at the screen for a full minute. Maddie. One of the twins. I read the message over and over, making sure I wasn't imagining it. Then I typed back. Of course. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning the apartment like my life depended on it. Put on real clothes. Combed my hair twice. Cooked what I remembered they used to love, spaghetti with meatballs, garlic bread, brownies. They arrived just after 6. Maddie and her sister Leah. Taller, older, but still them. I froze in the doorway for a second when I saw them. Hi, Dad, Maddie said. Quiet, but steady. Hi, Leah echoed. We sat down. Ate. Talked. I asked about school, about soccer, about how Dana was doing. They answered, cautiously at first, then more freely. Maddie smiled once. Leah asked for seconds. For a moment, I let myself believe it. Maybe this was the start of healing. Maybe the letters mattered, even if they were returned. Maybe they didn't hate me. Maybe, just maybe, forgiveness wasn't off the table. But after dessert, as they packed up their leftovers, Maddie said it. We didn't come to reconnect, she said softly. We came because Mom asked us to check on you. I blinked. Oh. She said you've been writing. That you're probably lonely. And that we should be kind. Not because you deserve it, but because people can still be kind to someone they don't trust. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She's with someone now, Leah added, like she needed to fill the silence. Todd. That name. I remembered it. Dana's old friend from high school. They'd reconnected on Facebook after the divorce. He's kind of like a second dad, Maddie said. The words were gentle, but final. He shows up, Leah added, glancing at her sister. He listens. He makes dinner. I swallowed hard. Maddie gave me a sad smile. We don't hate you. We just moved on. They hugged me at the door. Quick, polite. Like you might hug someone you barely remember but used to know. When the door shut behind them, I stood there for a long time. No TV. No phone. Just me and the leftovers and the sound of my heart beating in my ears. I wrote one more set of letters that night. Each one simple. No apologies. Just thank you for the memories. I dropped them in the mailbox the next morning. 3 weeks later, they came back. Unopened. Again. The twins turned 18 in May. I spent a full week picking out their gift, 2 matching watches, engraved on the back. No matter what, I'm proud of you. Dad. I had them wrapped in navy blue boxes, tied with gold ribbon. Thought maybe they'd come inside if I showed up in person. Thought maybe this year would be different. So I drove to Dana's house. It was a warm afternoon. The yard looked pristine, fresh mulch, a new swing hanging from the maple tree. Someone had been taking care of things. I stood at the front door for a moment, just breathing. Then I knocked. Leah answered. She didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired, like she'd expected it. Hi, I said, holding out the boxes. Happy birthday. She looked at them, then back at me. We don't want these. I just thought. You thought wrong, she cut in, her voice flat. Maddie appeared behind her. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me the way Dana once did in that kitchen doorway, like I was someone she used to know but didn't trust anymore. I know I wasn't the father you deserved, I said. But I never stopped loving you. Either of you. Maddie crossed her arms. You don't get to say that. Why not? Because love doesn't leave. My mouth opened, then closed. There was nothing to say to that. Behind them, I saw movement in the hallway. Todd. He stepped into view. Broad shoulders. Calm face. The kind of man who looked like he fixed sinks without being asked and remembered birthdays without reminders. He didn't say anything. Just stood there. Watching. Leah shifted. You should go. I tried to hand them the boxes again. At least take these. You don't have to wear them. Just keep them. Maddie looked me in the eye. He's our dad now. It was quiet. Still. Then she added, You're not. Something broke in my chest. I nodded. Okay. I turned and walked back to my car. The gift boxes still in my hands. As I reached the driver's door, I heard quiet footsteps on the gravel. I turned. It was Todd. He stood by the porch, arms folded. He didn't smile. Didn't gloat. He just watched me. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. Not to speak. Not to threaten. Just to reach out. And shut the front door. Soft. Final. I sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, and let the silence wrap around me. My hand shook on the steering wheel. And then, I wept. Hard. For everything I lost. For every version of myself I couldn't go back and fix. That night, I pulled out one of the watches, turned it over in my hand. Read the engraving again. Then I put it back in the box. And slid both gifts into the back of the closet. Unopened. Just like everything else I'd ever tried to give. A year after the last rejection, I packed what little I had left and left Portland behind. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one to tell. I found a cabin in Vermont, remote, buried deep in the folds of the Green Mountains. 2 rooms. Wood stove. No cell service unless I walked a quarter mile up a trail. It was perfect. The realtor had asked what brought me out east. I said, I needed quiet. She nodded, like she understood. Now, I spend my days surveying land for local forestry projects. I hike trails with flag tape tied around tree trunks and a pack full of tools on my back. On weekends, I volunteer for trail maintenance. Clear fallen branches. Repair erosion damage. Help strangers find their way when they get turned around. Some days I go without speaking a single word. And I'm okay with that. One afternoon in early September, I found a woman stranded near a collapsed footbridge. Her pack was too heavy. Her left boot was soaked from crossing the stream. I offered her water and helped her back to the nearest junction. We sat for a while on a rock under the trees. She introduced herself as Lila, school teacher, visiting from Massachusetts. She studied my face for a moment, then said, You look familiar. I smiled. Don't think we've met. No, she said, tilting her head. I read something once. A case study. About a man who lost his marriage over an affair, then wrote letters to his kids that were never read. My smile faded. She blinked. Wait, that was you, wasn't it? I looked down at the ground. Yeah, that was me. She didn't flinch. Just looked at me kindly. Do you regret it? She asked, quiet. Every day, I said. She waited, like she knew I had more to say. But regret doesn't undo damage. It just teaches you what not to be next time. She nodded slowly. That's something. We talked a little longer. Then she thanked me and left down the trail, waving once before disappearing into the trees. I walked home in the dusk, boots crunching through fallen leaves. When I got back to the cabin, I pulled down the shoebox from the shelf in my closet. The one with all the letters. Dozens of them. Yellowed. Still sealed. I sat by the stove, turned one over in my hands. Then I stood, grabbed the fire poker, and opened the stove door. One by one, I fed the letters into the flames. They curled, darkened, and disappeared. No ceremony. No tears. Just release. I watched the fire until only embers remained. Then I poured a glass of water, stepped outside into the crisp mountain air, and looked up at the stars. They didn't judge. They just stayed where they were. Distant. Still. But always there. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't wish for anything more.